Cambridge University Library holds up to 9,000 original copies of writings related to former student and scientific pioneer Charles Darwin. From his own studies as a young man aboard the Beagle to the writings that filled his bookshelves and influenced his theory of evolution, which he wrote in his book on the origin of species. Historian Alison Pern has been researching Darwin for 20 years, finding out how the man worked and how he corresponded with family, friends and other great minds.
The first letters are actually when he was only 12 years old. There's a really charming little group of letters. They don't really get going until he's actually a student. So he goes first to Edinburgh and then comes to Cambridge. He's a very typical student really. He does all the kind of things that students do. He parties and he gets into debt and indulges in the pastimes that were sort of that young men did at that period, which don't sound maybe so exciting today, but he was a famous beetle collector. Beetle collecting was a big deal because it was very competitive. I think it's like collecting anything at any time, in any age. And all the way through, and I think it's interesting, the period we're working on now, sort of around 1876, when he first became a grandfather, he does what so many people do. He started really thinking about his own family history. He wrote down some notes about his own life, and he started actually doing genealogy. So there's a whole new, we're actually quite excited about this because this is going to be starting for us soon. This is a whole new kind of correspondence where he's actually discussing with various people the history of his own family.
To mark his birthday this month, the Darwin Correspondence Project is putting up 8,500 copies of his letters to their website. In one, he tells a friend, Joseph Hooker, that he believes that living things can change, and says that admitting this new world view is like confessing a murder. In his 1,400 letters with Hooker, they shared many revelations about how the world works.
After Darwin had received a box full of orchids, and one of them had an incredibly long nectary, so that the nectar was actually down at the bottom of a twisty 11-inch long tube. Darwin had put forward the theory that orchids are very specifically adapted so that they can be pollinated by particular insects. So this seemed rather to go against his theory, because what an incredible insect it would have to be to have a proboscis, sort of like a mouth parts that could actually reach all that way down. But Darwin stuck to his guns. He said, well, there must be an insect out there that can suck it, and he was right. And this is a conversation where they'd actually been joking about natural selection rather, which is perhaps a bit unexpected. In particular, Hooker was teasing Darwin by saying that natural selection would, as a sort of a consequence of natural selection, would be that you would end up with an aristocracy. And he says it is his dogma that brains times beauty equals breeding plus wealth. 19th century humour is sometimes a little difficult. You have to get your ear in.
Alison feels that she still has plenty to find out about Charles 2 decades on. You can join her in making discoveries about Darwin by visiting www.darwinproject.ac.uk. Adam Page, Cambridge TV News.